Welcome to Deep Transformation, Self-Society Spirit. I'm Roger Walsh, and our co-host is John Dupuy. And today we have the pleasure of doing our fourth dialogue in the A.H. Almaas Wisdom Series, which is a year-long series of dialogues with Hameed Ali, pen name A.H. Almaas, the founder of the Diamond Approach, the author of numerous books, laying out the tenets and practices of the Diamond Approach, which is one of the great innovative spiritual paths of our time. And we're focusing in particular on what can be called the central text of the Diamond Approach, titled The Inner Journey Home, which lays out the central concepts and practices. And today in our previous dialogues, we've done an overview, we've looked at the central practice of inquiry, we've begun to explore some of the concepts, and today we move on to the core ideas in the third and fourth chapters. Third chapter is titled, describes the soul as an organism of consciousness. And Hameed, you talk about the idea that there are many theories of consciousness. Most of our secular and scientific worldview views consciousness as kind of a creation or epiphenomenon of neural networks. But for you, consciousness is used in a very distinct way, and you indicate it as the foundation or ground of our very being and of our soul. And you speak of, you specifically say that you're using the word consciousness in the way that Kashmir Shaivism does. So perhaps we could take a couple of things here and have you talk about what your investigations and work have led you to, how you to see and understand the very nature of consciousness, and to speak about it as our fundamental being.
Yeah. Well, I think one of our conversation, I did make a distinction between universal consciousness and individual consciousness, which some teaching do, but not all teaching do. And universal consciousness is what the ground of the non-dual view of reality, which is like consciousness is everything, everywhere, nature of everything, and everything is an expression of consciousness. Individual consciousness is how a human being, how that universal consciousness comes through a being, like a human being. It appears as what I call individual consciousness. And that has properties different from universal consciousness. Universal consciousness is timeless and immaculate and cannot be changed or influenced or impacted by events of time, while individual consciousness is one of its properties is that it is malleable. It learns and develops and transforms. It's dynamic because of that. It's like a flow, of individual flow. And so it's more located where the body is. It comes through the body, animating the body, and appears as our awareness in general, what gives all our physical capacities of perception, the capacity to be aware, and also to be aware of our subjective inner experience. So universal consciousness is the ground of that. However, Universal consciousness doesn't have the properties of being growing and developing and learning and all that. It is perfect as it is. Individual consciousness is, we're born as that. We're born as which I call an organism consciousness. Organism because it's learned and develops and impacted by events and can be more or less free until it recognizes its nature, which is pure consciousness, and then it is more liberated to be itself. So much of the beginning of the path is how to clarify individual consciousness from the imprints of the past, which is called conditioning. Get conditioned, formed into until it becomes what we call the ego self. So the ego self is not just thoughts in the mind. It is actually the individual consciousness that is impacted by experience and molded by our experience, positive or negative. So it develops many levels of what's called structuration. So the free-flowing, dynamic, living consciousness, that is the individual consciousness, which many people call the soul, becomes, because it is impressionable, and its impressionability is needed for its learning and for its developing skills and capacities. So it learns all these things through our life. However, it doesn't only learn that, it also learns to identify with the body and with the psychological sense of identity, and which makes it then not be aware of its true nature, you know. And so the practice of inquiry, as to all practices and all teaching, is basically to have that individual consciousness wake up. Yeah. You know, wake up means to know what it is fundamentally, not what it has learned to be itself, which is the development of the ego self, which is developed in such a way that we lose our consciousness of what we are, and especially the baby is not self-reflective, doesn't know what it is. You know, it's free, it is being itself, but doesn't know it, has no reflective capacity. That is a development. And so the cognitive capacity develops. We have a beginning of it in childhood and develop cognition and knowledge. And there's already an emotive capacity that becomes more developed, more appropriate to certain relationships. And so it becomes a part of the basis of a relational capacity. And so that's what makes us become more developed, adult human being, which we can think and feel and sense and act, all of that. So the individual consciousness is necessary for all of that to do, for all of that to happen. But in the process, visual consciousness become included, and so the light of pure consciousness doesn't come through except as normal awareness. And so the process of inquiry or practices of any kind, it can be called the clarification of the consciousness, it can be called purification of it, meaning divesting it of a thing that gets deposited in it that is not inherently part of it. So, I mean, in the Eastern study, they talk about karma. In the West, we talk about conditioning. This is sort of the same thing. And so it gets conditioned to be yourself, but everybody ends up believing that's what they are. And of course, unless the enlightenment drive, the passion for liberation arises as a force that can make us be interested to know more about what we are and willing to take the time and the energy to practice, to contemplate, to engage, and make that a priority in our life, which is needed. It needs to become priority. You know, if other things are priority, usually a person won't wake up really, won't go much. But it has to become so much a priority at some point. It's number one priority.
Mm.
You know, and that becomes a leading light for our life. And so, which is to know what we are, to know ourselves.
The love of truth.
Love of truth, love of truth becomes obvious, becomes a felt thing and a force. And the curiosity with it and the courage to continue to deal with the difficulties, you know, and the steadfastness that is also required. But the courage, steadfastness, the curiosity and the love are all expressions of our pure consciousness, appearing as specific qualities.
Yeah, and that seems a distinct feature of your work, as far as I know. Of course, then maybe it's found in some places in other traditions, but it struck me as you in this chapter, the way you describe it. Yes, all these, whatever we call them, virtues or capacities or strengths, love, compassion, depth, and sincerity, etc., that they are all, you say they're all inherent in consciousness, but they can grow and develop and strengthen into what you call aspects, distinct virtues or qualities. And virtues is the word which keeps coming to mind.
So that is, as you said, it's an important part of this path, and it distinguishes it from many other paths. But I see it. Many people think, well, why not just experience pure universal consciousness, non-dual, everything is that. And that is true, that is more transcendent, and the path gets there. However, those qualities are really significant, add something to spiritual life that are not accessible just by knowing pure consciousness.
Yeah.
So pure consciousness, let's say, differentiates itself, like going through a prism to different, like the light coming into different colors, for instance, white light. Pure consciousness can differentiate like that into many qualities, each one with its own affect, color, viscosity, density, all of these things. And these become what I call the essential qualities. And they're very important for the practice. I mean, if you don't have steadfastness, you can't continue practice. But steadfastness is a characteristic of what I call the will equality, the pure will, pure in the sense of confidence and solidity and groundedness. That is essential, that is fundamental, that makes us be able to be steadfast, be determined in a way that nothing can dissuade us or distract us. And as we know, even meditation practice requires it. We can't really meditate and do it regularly without the steadfast. But the steadfast means you need to develop, they call it discipline. But discipline means the will has developed, has emerged. And the boldness and the courage to acknowledge that I don't know, and the boldness to experience the difficulties and the pain and the fears, whatever that we encounter as we learn to, as we inquire into our consciousness, so it becomes more clarified. It's clarified, basically clarified with conditioning, but the conditioning is embedded in it, all our experiences throughout our life. Lots of it is hidden and unconscious because it's difficult, it's painful. We couldn't deal with it. So it does need the boldness and courage to deal with it, plus the curiosity to be even interested to know what it is.
Yeah. And beauty, one of the beauties of, it seems, of any authentic path, and you lay this out, is that the very qualities we need to cultivate in order to fulfill a path and awaken are qualities that practice itself does cultivate and strengthen, it seems.
Yeah, the practice cultivate and also practice needs. Like the practice of inquiry needs all the qualities to emerge. The more they emerge, the more powerful is the practice of inquiry, and the more precise and more effective. And the inquiry itself reveals them, but then they impact the inquiry itself to make it more precise and more powerful, more effective. So there's an interaction between the two. But these qualities are all important for life, for living. How can one live their life truly, authentically, without courage, without steadfastness, without truth, without sense of inner integrity, authenticity, without the qualities of love and compassion and intelligence and clarity? All these are qualities, and the inner peacefulness and stillness and qualities of the heart, like love and compassion, but there is sense of value we talked about before, inner sense of value, the quality of fulfillment, the quality of satisfaction, the quality of true sorrow.
True sorrow?
True sorrow.
Say more about that to me.
True sorrow is not guilt. It's not regret. It's a presence of consciousness, pure presence of consciousness, which is just sorrow for the suffering. So, like you've done something that caused pain. You realize that, and at the beginning, people feel guilt, feel regret, feel sorry, but sorrow is just a pure quality of the heart. It's actually sweet, a kind of love. I mean, it is, I call it severe kind of love, meaning it's more dry, more a sense of clarity to it and authenticity. And so we have sorrow for what we've done, but sorrow for what's happening in the world.
So, Hameed, when you say pure sorrow, and I think I'm pretty familiar with that one, we can look at what's going on in the world, for example, and how human beings are treating each other and treating the world. We can feel that just pure sorrow that is, it's okay. It's a part of the journey, and we can inquire into that. What is this sorrow about? Why do I feel so much? When I read the news today, or when I walk down the street and see a homeless person, or whatever it might be. So that pure sorrow is not something to be fixed, but something to be used as a process of developing the self.
Yeah. So if we actualize our true sorrow, we feel it directly, which is a quality of presence, really. It's not an emotion. It's a presence with the affect of sorrow, which is many people don't expect. They say, well, consciousness is more, has in its truth, has in it, joy, sorrow. Many people don't expect it, but it's actually there's the qualities of sorrow, and it is not sad. It is more sweet. Sweet with, and it's not compassion. It's not kindness. It's different. Compassion, kind of the way you relate to somebody. Somebody is doing. Sorrow is more encompassing.
Yeah.
And but it is the quality of our true consciousness, true beingness. So I'm bringing it as one possibility of quality. All these qualities, I don't know how many of them, I don't know, 30 or 40 of them. There might be more. I don't claim that Darwin approach includes all the possible qualities. But I don't know. I know what I know. But they are the closest thing to what's called the Platonic forms. If you remember the Socratic dialogues, what was it about? About humility, about courage. That's what he was asking. What is courage? What is humility? And he didn't tell them. He questioned. It was the inquiry. And students have to ask to find out, search for themselves. I mean, it's not, I think, like Socrates didn't know. He knew, but in the inquiry, in the teaching, he sort of like forgets what it is. Like he really inquiring with everybody to discover what so these are the true Platonic qualities. So I mean, Platonic quality, the concept can apply to many things, but in this approach, the Diamond approach path, these are sort of the Platonic qualities, and they are necessary for the path and necessary for living human life, both.
And
I had something I wanted to ask Roger. One of the things that stands out to me as I work with this book, which you said is basically covers the first 20 years of getting on this path. So I have a little bit more time to work on it. But you talk about the emergence of a quality in the soul that you call the pearl essence.
Yeah.
And that is the individual soul, as I understand it, when we become aware of presence and we start doing the work and we actually discover the existence of our soul. Let me read you from your writings here. In other words, as a soul learns to be a pearl, personal essence on a particular boundless dimension, it becomes possible for her to experience the dimension integrated with the aspect of personal essence. So as we discover the basic realization of unity of all things, at the same time, co-emergent is a stronger, clearer, more pure, defined sense of our personal essence. At the same time, they co-emerge and they're part and parcel of each other.
Yeah.
Is my understanding.
I mean, yes, correctly. However, you need to distinguish between the personal essence and the individual soul. They're not exactly the same thing. Personal essence is one of the qualities of our true being. Just like power and strength and intelligence, there is a personalness to consciousness. But it has to do with the individuation of the soul learning to recognize itself as a person, not just individual, a person. And so a being becomes a person of being. But a person means there's a quality of being personal, being able to make true human contact, a capacity to function, and act in an authentic way from being. All of those are the characteristic of the pearl or the personal essence. It is one of the quality, but one of the major qualities, in some sense, central quality, that in time integrates all other qualities as we talk about individuation in a psychological sense. That exists in psychological literature and theory in the process of separation and individuation, even, and say you become an individual. But that is a forerunner for true individuation, which is individuation on the consciousness level, not just individuation that happens through development of ego structures. Which most human beings experience themselves as an individual or person, but they're not the true person being. The true person being, it's called, and that traditions that know it, they call it pearl, incomparable pearl, or precious pearl, or pearl beyond price. Why is that beyond price? Because it is really becoming a true human being, but a being of presence, not of mental constructs, not of memories, not of history, but the pure expression of consciousness as an individual, as an integrated, well-rounded person who can have a personal life.
And excuse me. And Hameed, I want to go back or underneath to what you point out as a very important, crucial distinction, and that is that you've been speaking about consciousness, but you point out a very important, maybe perhaps foundational idea of spiritual work, that initially we aren't aware of consciousness because we become enthralled by and fixated on and hypnotized by mental content. And that you point out that the spiritual path can be seen as a disidentifying from or becoming less caught up in mental content so that we can recognize the consciousness which underlies it. And I wonder if you would speak to that, and because it seems so central and you emphasize it so deeply.
Yeah, I mean, that's true about all spiritual paths. That's the idea, in that we wake up to what it means, what we really truly are, fundamentally are, and that is not the product of time. That's not the impact of history. So we're free of conditioning. Consciousness is free of conditioning, recognizes what it is, which is pure presence, beingness, awareness. I mean, the Indian calls Satchitananda, right? Existence or truth, consciousness, and joy or pleasure or happiness. These three qualities are present in all the qualities of essence. We call qualities like strength or power. It actually has all of those in it already, but have an extra thing, which is the affect of that particular quality. Like the pure consciousness, you can't say it's courage or it's or it is sorrow, or it is you can't. It doesn't have those. It's more fundamental than that. But then it's implicit. All these qualities are implicit in pure consciousness. They become explicit in recognizing the essential qualities. They're implicit and undifferentiated in pure consciousness. They become differentiated in the soul And these qualities, you see, here I want to make a distinction. You see, many teaching, especially the non-dual teaching, they take the view that our ordinary life is an illusion, is basically a product. We see things the way we see it because our mind is conditioned to see things as discrete objects and separateness and all that, and that source of all problem. And now there is truth to it. There is that is what I call in this teaching. This is what I call the teaching of the second turning. There is a teaching of the first turning, teaching of the second turning. And the second turning is the non-dual realization, which is experiencing consciousness as vast and pervading the whole universe, manifesting the whole universe. So recognizing that I am all and everything, and the nature of all and everything. That is what I call, in this path, it is, we call it the teaching of the second turning. The realization, it is a vast realization that could take some years of learning and development. And we will get to it at some point in some detail, because the book goes in details about it. But there is the teaching of the first turning. You see, the first turning, the non-dual teaching, they take the content of the first turning, which is the ordinary life, as complete illusion. This path doesn't say that. This path says the ordinary world is one way reality manifests.
Mm-hmm.
Is not the product of our, ignorance, whatever. It is one way reality manifests, and part of this way is that we are identified with ego and all of that. Otherwise, who's producing it? You see, it has to be through nature itself. That is making it be that way. And not only that, there is a spirituality in that world. Most people experience spirituality. They live it in a dualistic world. They have spirituality. Christian spirituality most of the time is in a dualistic world. In the sense there is a person, there's other people, whatever, and there's homes and cars, whatever. But my heart is alive and connected with God. That is spirituality that can exist in the ordinary world. And so the first turning of this teaching is that there is spirituality, learning about the qualities, recognizing the nature of the soul as pure consciousness, dynamic and alive, and intelligence and responsive, but also can learn and develop and grow and mature, and that its nature is pure consciousness that can appear as these many qualities that are needed for both living in this life and for practice, spiritual practice. So, and also not only there is a spiritual possibility of spirituality in the ordinary world, has its own spirituality, has its own realization, its own awakening. Awakening, recognizing that the presence, there is first the experience of spirit as qualities, as presence. The presence I am, sense of I amness. But then there's what I call realization. The realization is the recognition that the present is what is me, is what I am.
Mm-hmm.
It is not boundless and infinite and vast. It is just a presence that is localized, that maybe fills the body, fills the room, but and it comes with different qualities. It could be gentle, soft, kind, or it could be immense and powerful, or it could be intense, and all these are qualities of being realization of true nature as presence without it being non-dual.
Mm.
You see, without being non-dual. Non-dual means I'm the universe. Here, I'm not in the universe. I'm not the universe. I am in the universe. I am a particular in the universe, but this particular spirit comes through me. And the spirit not only comes through me, I am the spirit. And the spirit has many qualities and many capacities. So that is the realization of what I call the first turning. And in this path, the realization of first turning is miraculous and amazing. And I think it's referred to it by other Hindu teaching, even referred to it. Nisargadatta Maharaj, mentioned, he talked, first you have to know the I am before you know the absolute.
Mm.
That's his method.
Mm.
And when he speaks of the I am, what is the I am? He said it is a point of light and presence.
Mm.
He mentions it in his books, in his discourses. There's a point of pure light and presence and intelligence, and you realize that gives you the sense I am.
Mm.
And for him, that is needed to get into the vastness of the absolute and the non-dual. You see. So it is known in many teaching, but in this teaching, it is its own value. It's not just to get us to the absolute, that to be the pure, to be pure presence, regardless of it's vast or not, is an important realization, and we can be that way in this ordinary life.
Mm. And one of the beauties of the diamond approach, it seems to me, is this not a devaluing of mundane life or even our ordinary state of consciousness, as you pointed out, so much of is central to various schools of Hinduism, for example, but a valuing and appreciation that everything, including our ordinary deluded state, is an expression of the absolute, the play of that, and your four turnings make a place for and offer a value to every aspect of life, it seems.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, because I think when you really consider it, contemplate the situation, the ordinary world, the ordinary life, is quite miraculous.
Mm.
Think of it. There's a universe. The universe have being that can know the universe, that can navigate, they can make things, that can, the fact that we can think, we can understand things is, I mean, there are many creatures, animals who can do that. Human beings actually can do that. They can think, they can contemplate, their heart can develop and can become kind and human and responsive and and not be selfish. I mean that's. But the fact that the universe obeys natural laws that science has discovered, why? What makes it be that way? That is amazing. It is ordered. The world has order. If you remember, the Greeks talk about order. They call it the logos. And order is the basis of reason.
Mm-hmm.
Parmenides made that distinction. He talked about reason and logic. And reason and logic is based on the fact that there's order in the universe. You see, so our mind capacity to reason is connected with the fact the universe is ordered, has order to it. That now we discover it follows those natural laws. It's ordered. It is not just a chaotic thing that, so it is. So the non-dual, they dismiss it as illusion. And it's why? It is beautiful. It is miraculous. It has suffering, true. It has violence as part of it, but that is part of its characteristics. It has everything in it. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
Hameed, I have something I wanted to bounce off you. And this is kind of a syllogism that I developed studying your work, speaking of the Greek and speaking of logic. And one of the remarkable things about your work is you have a deep embeddedness in science, in Western science, in physics, in the language of mathematics, plus the direct apprehension of a mystic. And you also talk about being able to bring those two types of consciousness together. But this is my syllogism from your work. Being is consciousness. Being is the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, the universe is conscious.
Right.
Would you agree with that basic statement?
Yes, the universe is conscious. However, we have to add more to that statement. It's conscious through the beings that the universe has developed. The universe as a whole is not conscious by itself. It is conscious through us. The universe becomes conscious through the being who awaken.
So we are the universe being conscious.
Yes. Exactly. We are the universe as is conscious of itself, because that is the contribution of non-dual experience, that the universe wakes up. But always, non-dual experience, always an experience of an individual. Is there any non-dual experience without an individual being involved in it? A human being? There may be other beings that are capable of it, but usually we know human beings are the one who recognize that the universe is conscious.
So non-duality, the experience, is not possible without the human who has the experience. That's what brings it together.
Exactly. And that's the thing that I critique the purely non-dual teaching, is that they dismiss the individual. They say individual illusion. I said, what do you mean it's an illusion? Without it, there won't be non-dual experience. And you can't, and they say, well, it's a convenience, it's a construct. They say it's an illusion that consciousness creates to become aware of itself. Why does consciousness need to create an illusion? Why does it have to lie to itself to know itself? You see, that's why I think, like the Sufi mystic Ibn Arabi put it correctly, put it in a good way. He said, the soul needs God just as much as God needs the soul.
Yeah, that one's always been a
You see, that brings this point we're talking about. God, the soul needs God to exist. Without God, which is pure being, there's no existence for the soul. There's no such thing as soul. But God needs the soul to know itself. There's no way for God to know what God is without the soul. But the soul is the organ of knowledge of the universe. The organ of consciousness, the organ of knowing.
Thank you. That was, if this were a Christian church, I'd be jumping up and down saying, amen, hallelujah, brother.
Yes, it does
very,
bring
very
the Christian perspective too.
Yeah. And Hameed, it seems that, and you point out that these realizations really depend on the capacity to experience consciousness directly, that is a kind of foundational capacity on which all these realizations rest. And you say that when we begin to experience consciousness directly, a whole new world opens up. Inner explorers travel to a world much more exciting and thrilling, more beautiful and meaningful, and much more amazing and magnificent than any outer explorer will ever behold.
Mm-hmm. It's true. We discover a whole universe. Another universe within our universe, which is the inner world. You see, the inner world, the world of spirit, has more in it than the outer universe. More qualities, more dimensions, more possibilities of experience and perception. But our universe, physical universe, is real. It is, I mean, all experience happens within the context of the physical universe. Even though in non-dual experience, it doesn't appear as physical, it appears as made out of consciousness, but it's still the homes, you still go to your home and sleep in your bed. Even though you know you are the whole universe, but you still need to sleep in your bed. You can't sleep in somebody else's bed. You cannot take somebody else's car and drive it. You have to drive your car, even though you are the whole universe. I remember in an interview, Maharishi Yogi, one time, was interviewed by a Senate committee, I think. They were wondering about the finances of their organization. And it was an interesting thing. It was later in his life, I think. He was sort of mostly emptiness. And he is one also, he has a scientific background. He has a physics background, I think. So they were asking him about money. Do your organization have accounts and funds, whatever? He said, yes. And he said, you have access to bank account? I said, I have access to all bank accounts. He said, what do you mean? He said, I have access to all bank accounts from everywhere in the world. Of course, the son said, didn't understand what that means. But I mean, he didn't try to clarify. But in some sense, yes, because you are the universe. You are not only, you are the bank accounts. And he was coming from that condition. But I think when I reflect on it, he didn't do it skillfully enough. I mean, he was coming from a place that's true, but he needs to talk to the mentality of those people. He can't come from my advocate's whole account. They think he's a thief. No. But he was stating the real truth, though.
Yeah. And as you're saying, he was stating the absolute perspective without nuancing it with the relative.
The relative world, exactly.
Yeah.
That shows that the relative world, what many teachers call the dual world, has the truth. We have to respect it. We have to. In fact, no one who lives in non-dual experience can do it without taking the dualistic world into account.
Yes.
You can be, I can experience myself as the vastness that holds the whole universe. However, still, as the physical body is my expression, I have to take account of the fact I can't cross the street in front of a car. I have to consider the physical laws. You see.
And it seems like that's one of the traps or initial traps, perhaps, of a non-dual perspective is it dualistically separates the relative off from the non-dual instead of a fully encompassing non-duality, which appreciates that this
Yeah, and of course it depends on how developed the individual is in that teaching. The most developed ones recognize that. At the beginning, you're sort of fascinated by the vastness and the beauty, the brilliance of being the whole, and that is intoxicating and make you sort of dismiss everything else as irrelevant or minor or small. But as one develops, as one matures into that, you recognize more. In fact, I remember, for instance, another story that shows that example. I was reading Trungpa. Remember Chögyam Trungpa?
Oh, yes.
And one of his teachers was Dilku Khyentse, the great Dilku Khyentse. And he mentioned a story. He said he was walking with him, and he was asking, what is, when you go deeper into the Dzogchen path, at some point, what's the practice? What do you do? And his response was, just live your life.
Oh. Yeah.
So that he knew that. Just live your life simply. No big deal about vastness and being the universe. You still have to live your life. That become the simplicity of realization. That's more mature spirituality.
And we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but it's wonderful. And it seems like you're pointing to that the importance of, you emphasized before, the importance of diligence and will and continuing with the practice. And now it seems you're pointing to a radical shift that occurs at a certain point where the very effort and will drops away into what Dzogchen would call spontaneity, or the Chinese Wu Wei.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, then there is no, in that condition, and then there's no such thing as choice and decision, so the question of personal will is irrelevant and all that. So, yeah, but we're talking about the first thing, the realization of the ordinary world, which most people live in, and all spiritual people start. They have to start there. When they're practicing in the ordinary world. They might think in the teaching that, well, you're just an illusion and you're practicing, and the practice is actually an illusion. In fact, some Dzogchen texts, they even say, don't practice is an illusion, and practice will delay your realization. I mean, Kunji Japa says that, But anyway, I'm bringing in the importance and the preciousness of the ordinary world.
Yeah.
And it's a necessity. I mean, you have to start there. Everybody starts there. And to say we're starting in deluded world, and to go to the real world, I see it more as moving from one way of experiencing reality to another way of experiencing reality.
Yeah.
For me, that is actually more descriptive of what actually happens.
Yeah, and it feels like that's one of the, as far as I'm aware, a rare perspective that you are offering, and an appreciation of the non-dual, but also an appreciation that there's only one possibility. And I think one of the remarkable things about the diamond approach is just the recognition of the sheer boundlessness of perspectives and openings that can occur, and an appreciation of them all, and even more, a setting them in a developmental context through the four turnings.
Yeah, I mean that's all. The fact of recognizing that the dualistic world has its reality, just as the non-dual world has reality, is a beginning of recognizing there are different ways reality appears. There are other ways too, that the third, fourth turning brings up, But most people actually, they live in the first turning. And even though they can have a non-dual experience, they don't live it most of the time. They come back living as human beings with a good heart, with a clear mind, and things like that, which is wonderful. So, but you can live, I remember myself for many years living as the authentic presence. Authentic presence driving my car, and my car is metal. That time, now it's plastic. It was metal, and I didn't see it as consciousness. It was metal, but I am consciousness. You see, that is a possibility, which is an interesting possibility, that you can be pure consciousness living in a world of matter, which is non-dual. There's no world of matter. All matter is consciousness, which is true at some different way of experiencing it. But it's possible to experience reality can manifest itself as matter and spirit together. Which is an interesting possibility when you think about it, which is like, really, in some sense, it's more miraculous than everything is consciousness.
It's all a miracle and a mystery.
Yeah, all of it, because all of it is the expression of the fundamental nature. All of it. Who else was gonna, create?
I was going
make possible this ordinary world.
I was going to say in the Christian scriptures, there's a very famous saying that Jesus allegedly said. He said, "The kingdom of God is within you," right? The internal experience, your own true nature. But in the Gospel of Thomas, which was rediscovered recently, 1945, Jesus says, "The kingdom of God is within you, and the kingdom of God is without you."
Yeah.
It's both inside and outside. And what you're saying re-enchants the world, re-sacralizes everything in our experience, which is quite a gift.
Yeah. So there are two ways in some way experiencing spirituality that way. So, but the thing about the essential quality, which is, I think, it's because even if you live you're a non-dual world, you do need courage and clarity to live in the world. And these are qualities of pure qualities of consciousness that can manifest as themselves. Like courage would manifest. You experience like your presence become like red lava, like hot, warm, intense, fiery, brilliant, beautiful, ruby red. That is your being. And when you feel that way, you feel capable. You feel that courage is natural, boldness is your nature. And that is an amazing way of experiencing spirit. Another way of experiencing it as that my presence is pure truth. Truth as a specific quality, fundamental quality, which when we experienced it, the interesting thing about this is that the truth is a quality also. One way consciousness manifests itself is as truth. truth that is not any particular truth, that's just truth, truthfulness. And when I experience myself as truth, I feel myself as made out of pure gold. 24 karat gold. This 24 karat gold is gold of consciousness. It's pure consciousness, conscious of itself, but conscious of itself as metallic, as gold, but it's warmth and has a sweetness, has a livingness. But the gold, the sense of the gold is bringing the preciousness and bring in the sense of solidity, and the sense of substantiality, the sense of truth that is compact truth, compact presence, where falsehood can be seen right away. And make it the truth quality, make it possible for us to tell what is false, what is true. How can we tell what is true? We can tell. Human being can tell at some point through investigation, inquiry, like science uses that capacity to find out what is the truth, what makes us value truth, what makes us be able to recognize truth. As the fact is that truth is one of our qualities, essential nature. It is the compass that makes us navigate the world, because the world is full of lies, right, and falsehood, but also there is truth. And truth has many levels. There's scientific truth, psychological truth, that's essential truth, the truth of being. Like a consciousness, Satchidananda, the first word Sat is existence or truth. Being or are the same thing. See, but here the truth of being appeared as its own kind of presence, its own kind of fullness and solidity, and it's really beautiful sense of presence. It has a kind of compact warmth that doesn't burn. Warmth, like almost like the warmth of the heart, but it has a delicate sweetness. But at the same time, it's compact and dense and metallic, which is sort of miraculous. How can a metallic quality be sweet like love?
I mean, I just want to acknowledge and thank you for giving such a direct sensory experience of sense of how you experience these qualities or aspects of being, because first, it's rare to hear this kind of articulation of the multisensory synesthetic nature of these experiences. And second, because I find that as you do so, it feels like a transmission. I mean, I feel I'm almost teary at feeling touched by the richness of the articulation and the way in which it evokes, if not the full experience, at least a sense of these qualities, to the point I am moved to tears, and just so want to thank you.
Me too.
And
yeah, I am myself, the soul consciousness is fascinated and moved by recognizing its nature that way.
Yeah. And I mean, often in your descriptions of these aspects or qualities or capacities, you do allude to or describe quite specifically very precise sensory characteristics, for example, of truth or of courage. And you speak of the kind of somatic experience, the the shape, the size, the texture. And I guess in psychology, the closest thing would be you're describing what are called auto-symbolic images. That is, images which symbolize one state of consciousness. And the question I have is, to what extent are these specific experiences associated with different aspects or virtues or capacities that you described? To what extent are they specific to you, and to what extent are they universal?
Platonic archetypes, are there things you'll find at a certain level of consciousness? You'll find these things, these traits, these qualities, these feels, these tastes, these densities, all of that. Is that something that not just personal, but you see as an archetype in the sense that Plato talked about?
Well, that was a discovery in this path. At the beginning, I didn't know. I was experiencing it like this. And then I saw them arising in my students. And when they experience gold, when the gold arises in them, without me saying anything, they say truth. When the red essence arises in them, they say courage or strength. I don't have to tell them. You see.
Okay.
The green essence, the green delicate arises, they call it kindness. I don't have to tell them, which showed me at some point that it is a universal experience. These are universal truths, not universal in the sense of being the whole universe. Universal mean there are potential for all living beings, all human beings at least. And one other quality I wanted to bring up, also unexpected. Some of those qualities are unexpected to be qualities of presence or consciousness. Many people think of them as like, what do people think of a truth? They think it's something the mind recognizes. They don't know that the mind is able to recognize truth because there is something in our spirit that is pure truth. You see? Otherwise, we won't be able to tell what is true. You see? People don't think of that. But that's the value of those Platonic archetypes. Another quality I want to bring up is sincerity. People think of sincerity as an attitude or as a quality of mind or heart. However, sincerity is presence. Is when sincerity arises as a fluid, transparent, almost copper color. It's sort of golden, brown, transparent sweetness. It is a dry sweetness, not a wet sweetness. It's a called severe or dry or sweet clarity. Clear, sweet, golden, transparent presence. Yes, that the sense of I am sincerity. I'm not just sincere, I am sincerity, and this sincerity makes the soul be able to be sincere. Make the individual consciousness capable of being sincere.
Yeah.
Wow. There's so much there. Hameed, what does these different aspects of our essential nature, our soul, and you talk about presence, which I'd like you to hear more about because it's something very important in your writings. But what does this all tell you? All these qualities are part of something that is inherent in us. What does that say about the nature of reality? What does that tell us?
Well, we talk about the nature of the human consciousness, the nature of the soul. Now, when you say nature of reality, what do you mean by reality?
the way things are at our deepest human nature and level, dimension that we can come to.
So you're saying, what is the nature of the fundamental nature of everything?
Yeah, and what do these different parts that you've discovered and your students have discovered and we are studying your work as discovering, what does that tell you about, what can we infer from that about the nature of things and the nature of consciousness?
It tells you that it can manifest in many ways. It can manifest as truth, it can manifest as love. Even consciousness is a manifestation of the fundamental nature. Because the fundamental nature is deeper than just consciousness. Consciousness is a manifestation. Awareness is a manifestation. We can know and be our fundamental nature in subtler ways. At some point, indescribable. At some point, you cannot say. I know what I am. I cannot say what it is. But I know it, I am it fully. That is beyond awareness, beyond truth, beyond consciousness, all of those things. I see those as manifestation of what I am. But I am completely indeterminate.
Yes, could you say more about that? You've said that before, indeterminate. It's indeterminate. Explain that.
Because indeterminate in the sense, the fundamental reality, the deeper we go into it, the less knowable. At the beginning, we know it as truth, sincerity, love, and then we know it as consciousness and awareness, as emptiness, all of that. But it gets subtler and subtler until it becomes like it's hard to say.
Would one way of pointing to that be that the deeper our experience and realization goes, the more transconceptual what we find is?
Well, yes, there is a dimension I call the non-conceptual, for instance. But that is one dimension of non-dual reality. Is awareness is non-conceptual.
Yeah.
Awareness is pure perceptivity without knowing what you're perceiving. You see, that is non-conceptual. But indeterminate is more subtle than the non-conceptual. It's more like you cannot tell whether it's conceptual or not.
Yeah. Okay.
The idea of a concept is a concept.
Okay. All right.
You see, non-conceptual is a concept.
Yeah. Okay.
See, so because you can say, well, I'm aware, I am awareness that is non-conceptual, pure perceptivity without knowing. You already know a lot of things. But, it can go, I think, the true nature can become so simple. Become so simple that you are genuine, you are true, you're real, you're authentic, all without any, you just live it without recognition of what is that, without you don't need to know what you are. You are just the real.
Yeah.
We can experience I am, but we can't ultimately know what that is because it's beyond knowing.
Yes, but subtler. Because even to say am, it implies being, and being is a manifestation of fundamental nature. There's one explication.
I give up.
That's it. We give up at some point.
Yep. Yeah. Hameed, you're demonstrating something here which you point to in your fourth chapter on the nature of rational thought. And it feels really important to touch on this before we close. And that is, you point out that we are usually so lost into our thinking, discursive mind that for many of us, it takes turning off that conceptual apparatus in order to be able to know direct experience or pure consciousness. And so there can be a loss of discernment, discrimination that accompanies initial and often not so initial spiritual experiences. And yet you, as I understand it, you also imply that it is possible to do what I think you've been demonstrating through this whole dialogue, the capacity of moving into deep spiritual experiences and pure awareness, etc., while bringing, without a loss of that intellectual capacity or that discerning capacity, which leads to gnosis, understanding, wisdom. Is that feel right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what the Buddhists call discriminating awareness. You know, because it's not just awareness, but the awareness that can discriminate. This is this, this is not this, this is that. And that is a capacity. And it's true, we need to let go of the influence of the mind, of the ordinary mind, because the ordinary mind is conditioned, it's habitual, it's reactive. We need to be free of that to discover the true mind. There's a true mind, which is a knowing that has to do with a direct, immediate knowingness. That is not knowingness from the past. Like when you know truth as truth, is not because you've known it before. It is manifesting, it's or knowing love as love. That knowing is implicit in the love itself. The love and the knowing of the love and the presence of the love and the consciousness of the love are all one thing. So love has its own knowing because presence or being has its own knowing, you see. And that is different from the knowing of the ordinary mind. And that's, I think, what the Buddhists mean by discriminating awareness.
And at some point, you say in your writings here that non-conceptual awareness, that pure knowingness that is perfect, that never gets better or worse, it just is, can be integrated with our discursive, scientific, knowing, factual mind into a new unity of a new sort of consciousness that integrates both, and they're not this or that, but they become basically the same thing, a deeper.
I think our capacity to know, even in the ordinary sense, is based on, without the fundamental discriminating capacity of awareness, it's not possible to know in the ordinary way. There's a basis. This is the archetype of knowing that then manifests as a sort of a development of it, or let's say an abstraction of it, or diminution of it, becomes what we call ordinary knowledge. And the ordinary knowledge, somewhat, there are many kinds of it, you know. Some people knowing is just a belief. There's no true knowing. Like, for instance, when you know that hydrogen is oxygen, I mean, when you know that water is hydrogen, oxygen, you know it, right? It's truth. However, you haven't experienced it that way. You know it because you heard it from a scientist. It's been verified. It is a certain truth, scientific truth, but it is not the immediate truth of being, like knowing sincerity or knowing love. But it is the truth. That is a discrimination. So we don't want to dismiss that as an illusion, because water is hydrogen. I mean, it is a level of truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Hameed, as John, as we come towards the end of our time together, is there anything you would like to add? I mean, this is so rich, but is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I only just want to bring out what you brought out first, the importance of the fact that consciousness can appear with a particular quality, can express itself as a certain quality, like love or compassion, power or strength or peace or sincerity. It's important for people to know that, not just I'm just consciousness.
Yeah, and that feels like one of the unique features of your teaching, your emphasis on the different aspects or capacities that consciousness can take on, and that are inherent and essential, as you pointed out, to the spiritual path.
And you were talking about the different manifestations of consciousness. And one thing that we haven't talked about is the creative logos. In other words, the part of being that creates honeybees and hives and flowers, and how these creatures know how to make pure honey and special honey to develop the queen bee, and all the miraculous, incredible manifestations of sentience and life as we know it. That's a part of this too, this causal logos. And
yes, and that we will discuss that when we get into the part of the book that talks about, I call about the boundless dimensions,
yes,
which are the dimensions of non-duality. One of the dimensions is the creative logos. And that's a whole, I mean, it's a big, long chapter there. You might have gotten there. How we see creation happen.
Coming attractions.
yeah, that's a preview of what is to come.
We're discussing, we're focusing on the qualities now. I talk about qualities and dimension. They're not the same thing. And dimension is the second turning, which has to do with the non-dual awareness that has dimensions to it, which is, not just consciousness and awareness, the dimension of pure presence, the dimension of pure awareness, the dimension of pure creativity, the dimension of pure emptiness, things like that. We'll discuss those. But now we're talking about all these dimensions can differentiate into the qualities we're talking about now. And these are actually the treasures of the soul, the treasures that are present in our consciousness, because each one of them is like precious and beautiful. And the thing I want to emphasize is that the journey of learning about these is quite a beautiful adventure of discovery. Like we're discovering terrains and possibilities of our inner universe that we never thought about. We never created, we might have never heard of them. I mean, at the beginning, when I was discovering those things, I didn't know whether it was true or not. I never read about them. Nobody told me about them. And I was, I remember exploring the literature, different teaching, trying to find. I couldn't find anything like that. And at some point, I had to come to my own recognition. Well, it is true. It doesn't matter whether I heard it from somebody else or not. You see, and which is also a wonder. It is an amazement, these discoveries. It's a beauty, and it makes life so full of joy and delight of discovery. It's fun, really. And we talk about a profound truth, but it is blissful, and it is full of joy and of the joy of discovery. And even though we go through many, to discover these things, we have to go through our personality, our history. We have to clarify our consciousness. Each time we clarify, say as a part of our consciousness, one of those qualities emerges. Like the jewels that are hidden in the world, the hidden ordinary experience. And we see that our ordinary experience is based on these things. People talk about sincerity, truth, this, that. Where do these concepts come from?
Yeah. Hameed, I always find myself touched and impacted by our dialogues, but today it feels like there's even more of an impact or transmission. I think that is in part because you've been describing the different aspects and qualities, and obviously speaking from them, and also describing them with an unusual degree of embodied sensitivity, dimensions,
Yeah.
etc., in a way that enriches them, and for me anyway, has been deeply moving and clarifying. And so just very grateful. And I've noticed the distinct states that have been induced as you've been describing these. And I'm just getting over a really bad case of COVID. This is the first time in a month that I felt clear.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. You're getting through the fog of COVID.
Yes. So thank you. It's a non-traditional cure, but I'll take it.
It's lost.
Yeah.
Well, one thing, to mention about, when somebody knows those qualities, when you start talking about and describing it, it emerges.
Yes.
It emerges, it manifests in the sphere, in the field. So you might feel it yourself. You might get sense of it or some taste, experience of it. But it is true. It is synesthetic. The way it has all the quality, the hearing and seeing and feeling and knowing and color, and all of those are involved in these kind of experiences. So it's when I describe it, I'm describing what I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
And one thing that happens as the soul develops is something that has something to do with the word. The word brings out the qualities.
Yes.
And the quality brings out the word. The word and the quality are not separate. They are two sides of each other. And so when I describe, I'm presenting the experience. You see, the description is being articulating itself. So the words here are not an obstacle. They are venues. They are carriers of the wisdom.
Beautiful. Yes.
That's an amazing realization and truth. Thank you for that, Hameed.
Yeah. Hameed, thank you so much again. What a gift and what a delight.
Well, we're having fun together.
Yes.
Yeah, nice I appreciate the discussion. I appreciate, talking about these things that I love.
Yeah.
You know.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
I love sharing it.
Yeah.
What I love, because I want you to know about them too, to experience the treasures that are possible for us, a human. I want our listeners to have sense of it, to know what's possible for them.
Yes. It's a gift to all of us listening. So
yeah.
Thank you so much, Hameed. Wonderful.
And Hameed, as I'll speak for Roger and us, as we're very grateful for the time you're spending with us. And our respect and our love for you grows as we continue this journey together. So just thank you so much. And it's deeply, deeply appreciated.
Yeah.
Yes, I hear that. I feel the appreciation myself too.
Yeah.
I appreciate those discussions.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
And then, by the way, respect is another quality. Respect is, we'll talk about it sometime. It is a very profound truth.
Right.
Okay, see you next time.
Thank you.
Here I am, John Dupuy again, and I'm here to talk about supporting the Deep Transformation Podcast. The podcast has been an amazing experience for Roger and myself and for our team, and it's been growing. We're currently in the top 2% of worldwide podcasts, which is really remarkable. We think it's very important. We think deep transformation is the only way to go, because if we don't, we're in serious trouble. We're so grateful for the amazing presences and spirit and soul and people who've been on our podcast. We'd also like to ask you again for your support, financial support, and thank you for all of you who have been supporting this. And up till now, it's all been out of pocket for Roger and myself, and it takes money to produce, pay our staff, and for marketing. The circle keeps on growing, but the quicker that could happen, the more positive effect we could have in the world. And that's what we're here to do. And I was thinking before this, upstairs in my meditation room, I have the famous 10 Zen ox herding pictures up there. And the final one, after guys go through all this journey, is going back into the marketplace with open hands and open heart. So that's what we're trying. Open hands, open heart, open mind, so that we can do what? We can transform effectively and deeply and listen to some of the greatest minds on our planet as to how to do that. So thank you for your support. We love you and you matter. God bless.